I think most people would agree that sugar is not very good for you, and sugar is a type of carbohydrate. But there's other types of carbohydrate. You have fiber. That's a carbohydrate. When we think about fiber, we think about, oh, okay, that's something that's fairly good for us, right? So we have good carbs and bad carbs. But what makes something good and what makes something bad? It has to do with what it does to your blood sugar. Sugar absorbs very quickly and it'll raise your blood sugar. And fiber doesn't. We're going to get into that a little bit. I'm excited to tell you that I have a brand new product that's released. It's my magnesium powder. And the reason why I like magnesium powder is because I don't like taking 4 to 5 capsules of magnesium versus just 1 scoop of this magnesium powder, mix it in water, slug it down. We just got this in. Last night I tried it. I slept like a baby. And the form of this is called magnesium glycinate. The glycinate part helps calm you down and will actually enhance your sleep. And this form is absorbed at like 80% where other forms are absorbed 3 to 4%. There's 3 things about magnesium. Number 1, most people are deficient. Number 2, it's very difficult to test if you're deficient. And number 3, magnesium is involved in thousands of different things on the body that go way beyond just decreasing stress, relaxation, and better sleep. And as a one-time special offer, you'll get 20% off this product if you order it within the next 5 days. Simply click on the product icon in the left lower corner of this video, and the discount will automatically be applied to your purchase. But more importantly, it's understanding what the third carbohydrate is. We have sugar, we have fiber, and then we have what's left. So I'm going to give you a hint, see if you can figure it out. We take a look at this product right here. This has a lot of carbohydrates, not a lot of fiber, no sugar at all. Then we have chips, a lot of carbohydrate, not very much fiber, and basically no sugar. Here's one with high carbohydrates, a little bit of fiber, but no sugar. You ever see these right here? A lot of carbohydrate, no sugar. Instant potatoes, a lot of carbohydrate, no sugar. But here's the biggest hint. Cornstarch, a lot of carbohydrate. In fact, it's all carbohydrate, 0 sugar. The carbohydrate we're talking about is starch. All of these foods right here are loaded with starch, not in a whole form. It's not like potatoes or actual corn. We're dealing with something very highly processed. When you ultra process a starch, okay, like corn, for example, this starch no longer resembles the original food it came from. You could pretty much call this a synthetic starch, okay? It's highly manipulated. What you need to know about fiber and starch, both being similar, a chain of glucose molecules, is this. The bonds that connect these sugars together are very, very different. In fiber, they're extremely strong, and this is why you can't break them down. We as humans don't have the enzyme to break down certain fibers. Therefore, it doesn't get absorbed as sugar. And what's really fascinating about this is how certain starches affect your blood sugar. The first thing that's bad about starches, I'm talking about ultra-fine starches, is that a lot of these have the potential to spike your blood sugars more than sugar. An average American consumes over 50% of their calories being ultra-processed food calories. We create this massive spike of blood sugar, and we do it repetitively, day in and day out. At first, our body can handle it to some degree. Maybe we're younger and we can burn off some of this energy, but as we get older, we don't burn off the energy. Some of it gets stored as stored sugar in our liver. That's called glycogen. Then it gets converted over into fat. There's going to be a point where the fat cell itself is filled up. It had enough. It cannot absorb any more sugar. It becomes dysfunctional. And another term for this is called insulin resistance. Now, the fat cell no longer has the ability to absorb any more fat. So then what happens? Where does this energy go? It goes inside the organs as liver fat, as fat inside the pancreas. And it goes in between the organs too as visceral fat. You may have this yourself. If you look down right now at your shoes and you can't see them because your belly's in the way, then you have visceral fat. Visceral fat means that your liver also has fat in it. There's no way you can have belly fat and not have any liver fat. This goes on for a period of time until the insulin resistance gets so bad that now our insulin just doesn't work anymore. We can't remove the sugar out of the blood. We have now lost the ability to control our sugars. We get what's called diabetes because of the amount of carbohydrates they're consuming. And I'm not talking about the carbohydrates from vegetables and things like that, even fruit. I'm talking about the ultra-processed, refined carbohydrates, specifically starch. People are so much against sugar, but they don't really know this other hidden sugar in starch that's creating even more damage than sugar. And now you're starting to get an idea of what starch really is. Don't worry, it gets worse. If you're going on the ketogenic diet, for example, right, the big thing is to keep your carbohydrates below 50 grams. Many times within the ketogenic diet, no one's really talking about what type of carbohydrates you should keep below 50 grams. And I want to mention another point about starches. Starches are hidden sugars, but they're not classified as sugars. In fact, sometimes certain foods are advertised as sugar-free when in fact they're just loaded with this hidden sugar. The other problem with these, we'll call them synthetic starches, there's no protein, there's no fat, and there's definitely no fiber. Protein, fat, and fiber are the things that help buffer this spike in blood sugar. And when we're consuming so much of this right here, we don't have any buffer for our blood sugar. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that you're depleting your body in a major way when you consume that much starch. As you may or may not know, vitamin D is so important for so many things. Vitamin D would be depleted by consuming these types of foods. You're going to get a lot of inflammation. And the more inflammation you have, the less vitamin D can actually work in your cells. And vitamin B1 is like the spark plug that allows you to burn those carbohydrates. So now we can't make energy. You're going to get tired without B1, and you're going to deplete zinc. And the other thing that these, we'll call them synthetic starches, do is they tend to feed more of the pathogenic bad microbes more than the good bacteria. Your good bacteria want fiber. They can live on sugar, but they prefer the fiber. But your pathogens love these starches. They can just thrive on them. They basically ferment them more than the good bacteria, because a lot of this food is broken down so fast and absorbed very high up in your small intestine. It doesn't slowly break down and end up in the large colon too much because it's highly processed. You end up breeding or growing the unfriendly microbes in the small intestine. And this is called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. 50% of the population has that. The breads, the pasta, the cereal, the crackers, the biscuits, the waffles, the pancakes contain synthetic starches, which are actually way worse than sugar. But they contain sometimes whole grains, and they're considered heart healthy, which is a totally bunch of BS. But now let's talk about something even more interesting. Why are they putting all of this cornstarch, the food starch, the modified cornstarch? What is the purpose of this in our food? This is going to shock you. The purpose of the modified food cornstarch in food is to thicken things. That's why they put it in there. Just to thicken things. Another reason is a carrier, to be able to kind of like mix flavorings and sweeteners. It's like a delivery system. When we get into maltodextrin, the purpose is basically a filler. You mean to tell me that they're putting something very dangerous, worse than sugar, in our food just to be a filler? Something that they can actually make profit on, that they can then classify as sugar-free because it's classified as and I'm not kidding, a complex carbohydrate. The last purpose of maltodextrin is an energy source. Put it in certain type of protein powders or the muscle mass powders, where they're literally one serving is over 1,000 calories and 80% of that is maltodextrin. I mean, this is like creating such trauma, such overwhelming shock to your mitochondria and your cells so fast in your body when you consume this. I wanted to gain weight at some point, and so I started doing those protein powders, and it was filled with maltodextrin. It didn't work for me. All it made me do is want to go to sleep really quick. I just felt mentally groggy. The next time you're at the grocery store and you are tempted to buy these or these, which I used to love, these, or even these right here, realize that they have a tremendous amount of ultra-processed starch that's actually worse than real sugar. Now, since we're on the topic of maltodextrin, if you haven't seen this video, you should probably check it out. I put it up right here.